these two bands especially, like they'll be like, I'm going to see Journey. And I'm like,
right.
Yeah, I mean...
Recorded live from Studio 12A in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. You're listening to the Josh and Friends Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Josh and Friends Podcast. I am your host. My name is Josh. And joining me on this week's episode is Lee Olson. And we're going to get into some deep dives about reselling on eBay, TV shows from the 80s, classic radio voices from the past, and the state of live music in 2023. So without further ado, help me welcome back to the program. He's my old buddy, my old pal, Mr. Lee Olson.
Hey.
How's it going, buddy?
It's going all right, man. How are you doing?
Doing all right, getting good grades. Future's so bright. I don't have my shades. I don't know where they are.
You do have a Hawaiian shirt though, and it's a different one. As
you like it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about we will never see a repeat floral print shirt from you.
I don't
That's
think
a big
you
collection,
will.
buddy.
Yeah, I have a massive. I've assumed a massive collection of Hawaiian shirts, and
Do you just walk around in fucking floral print shirts everywhere?
you know what's funny is I don't, but for this show I gotta sport them. That's my thing, man.
All
I
right.
remember Jordan was on the show. He's like, "So what is this? Is this like your new look?" And I go, "I think it is.
This is like your thing. Yeah.
It is.
Well, I think you should at least get some secondary use out of them and wear them to Home Depot once in a while.
Maybe I will. Yeah.
It's better than me and my fucking t-shirt. I just wear the same t-shirts. They're
Okay.
boring.
Well, yeah. Well, once you find like a t-shirt,
Wearing a hot sauce t-shirt. I mean, whatever.
like certain t-shirts, like I had this t-shirt finally started getting holes in it. I swear to God, it was like 15 years old. I was like, this is the best t-shirt ever. I'm like, can I find this anywhere like new? Like this thing's amazing.
I don't know how you guys do that. Jewel has shirts that she got when she was like in junior high. She walked. I should find it. She walked in the other day. She said, "Do you think I can sell this on eBay?" And I was like, "What's that?" And she's like, "It's my concert T-shirt from the Beastie Boys' License to Ill tour in 1986." And I was like, "And it's in fucking perfect shape." And I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here!" Yeah, it's a long sleeve shirt from the legit 1986 Beastie Boys License to Ill tour. And I'm like, yeah,
way.
You can fucking sell that. She's like, yeah, I just had it. I never wear it. And I'm like,
do you realize that those old vintage shirts like that are like now going for like $800?
I know.
On eBay.
That's what I told her.
I'm not
She
even
goes,
joking.
yeah, no, I know. We started looking it up. I think the closest one we found went for $500.
Yeah.
For that one. And she definitely could. But for me, my t-shirts are gone, dude. There are no t-shirts except for the ones I packed away, like the old Mariner shit that like I tried to pack away.
Yeah.
But like hers, she just is so gentle on things. And just and like that, if you have a t-shirt that finally got holes after 15 years, I'm jealous because my shit gets holes in it like after a year. So
Oh man, yeah, wow, yeah, no, but that leads me into kind of talking about eBay stuff. I thought about this the other day, and I was, Jen and I, we like to go to kind of like Goodwills, thrift stores, and stuff like that. Kind of like what we used to do. Like,
yeah, oh yeah.
She just kind of like took your place of like, us just roaming around, like just checking out like
Sure.
the Goodwills and stuff like that. But I had kind of like I don't know if you would want to call it like an epiphany or whatever, but like we got to do this for fun. So it's like, maybe we should fucking start, because we see so much amazing stuff. So it's like, why don't we just grab some of this stuff and then turn around and sell it? Right. Like, we don't have to do it like full time. Like, we could like make
basically
some cash.
free to sell stuff online now. I mean, you pay a commitment, but like, that's
Think
a
about
great
this.
idea.
But think of how many people are selling this stuff online.
Oh no, that's why all the eBay people are billionaires. Yeah.
Oh, it's nutty. It's nutty.
Yeah, but that's a great idea. I mean, like, that's kind of the secret sauce for, especially like a second gig, like a side gig, is if you're doing something already, like if you're already spending your time doing something and it has an opportunity to make money while you're doing the thing you enjoy, why wouldn't you do that? Like,
I know, right? Because like, it's been a hobby of mine for as long as I've had a car.
Right?
I've always been
Me too.
fascinated.
Yeah, I
with
love it
like,
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like legit. There's this. I don't remember where this place was, but I always. It's funny, isn't it weird how in your head, I always have flashes. And I don't know if you have the same thing, but like there's always flashes of memories that I have with certain people, And with you, these always come up, and I always want to talk about them. But there was this one time, it could have been the same trip because sometimes we just drive around. Like
I think I know where you're going here. The time that I went to all the thrift stores topless, and now Jen has taken my place in that, and she keeps getting kicked out of places because they let me walk around topless, but not her.
Yeah, which is weird because you have a bigger rack than she ever did.
And honestly, like, I'm sure that people would prefer to see her topless. It's a weird world. Anyway, go on with your story.
No, but there's this thrift store. Remember, like, there was this thrift store. It's a weird kind of like, it was like half outdoors, and then like you go inside, and it was like a weird, I don't even know how to describe it, but it wasn't like a Goodwill. It was like I don't even know how we found it. We just drove by it and we're like, what is this place? And we just went in there, and it was like the floor kind of like went down, and like there was the outside.
Where was it?
I don't even know. Maybe like Des Moines or something like that, or something like in that kind of area off of Highway 99. Anyway, this is not important, but I always have a flash of like us like walking up to this place. And you're always looking at like completely different weird like stuff than I am. You're always looking at like used sporting stuff or like tools or stuff like that. And I'm like looking at records and all this stuff. But yeah, no. So I was thinking about like doing kind of like the like as a side gig, doing that, you know, Goodwill flipping or, you know, vintage, kind of like a you know, virtual store, like on Poshmark or whatever, just to make some like, you know, extra money because I'm doing it anyway, so I might as well, you know, kind of, you know, make some extra money doing it, right?
I mean, I kind of did that too. So I have a minor affinity for watches. There are people who are really into watches. I'm not. I just kind of like them, and I like, honestly, the old Casio G-Shocks because I had them when I was a kid. I wore a Casio G-Shock and whatever, and well, now they're kind of collectible, but they're kind of under the radar because most people don't know which G-Shocks. I mean, there are a billion G-Shocks out there, and most of them are worth, you know, $9. But there are a few of them that are kind of cool and vintage and whatever. And I definitely have gone to pawn shop, or I keep saying pawn shop, to thrift stores and found Casio G-Shocks that are worth hundreds of dollars. And the same thing. And even like I went to some department stores that were going out of business, and I found they had all their displays. The displays that would show the Casio G-Shock watches. And I was like, how much you want for them? They're like, I don't know, $10 for all three. And I ended up selling them for like a couple $100 each.
Wow.
Like the displays, because they're G-Shock collectors. And I bought a little light box, put them on eBay, you know, made some money. But you're absolutely right. Like, you can kind of take the thing that you would be doing anyway and enjoying. Because like, I'll go into a thrift store and look for the stuff that I want.
Right.
And sometimes you bundle it with other stuff, and then you got an opportunity to make some money. And that's basically what I've done with G-Shocks is I've purchased enough of them and resold the ones I didn't want to keep the ones I wanted for free.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's just kind of like one of those things where it's kind of like a no-brainer. I think we were kind of talking about this the other day where it's like, well, yeah, if I'm already kind of doing this and I know what I'm looking for and I know where to find stuff and all this good stuff, you should always take your strengths, right, and turn them into ways to make money. Isn't that like I've heard that? Who's that that speaker, that V guy that I can't remember his name?
Yeah, Winston Churchill. I don't fucking know.
He's very inspirational. He is.
I think Winston Churchill was a big thrift shopper.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had some Winston Churchill stuff to sell. But
see, you would be absolutely rolling in cash if you had Winston Churchill's like top hat or whatever the fuck.
But there was like one of these inspirational speakers, and he was talking about that. He goes, people don't realize that money can be made from just stuff that you have laying around the house.
Absolutely.
You could just start selling stuff, and you don't even know you have stuff that people want really badly. And you could start selling that stuff or start selling whatever and make a pretty penny doing it. So
right.
Yeah.
I mean, so that shirt from Jewel is a perfect example. Like, she had no idea. She's like,
exactly.
She was just kind of
don't know what they have.
No. And because we just moved, we're in a big jumble. So like, she sort of rediscovered that thing because we moved and whatever. And I mean, that thing, she might get $1,000 for it. Yeah. Like, honestly, it's in perfect shape. Who knows? And the stuff that people have and sort of the stuff that people want, if you take the time to figure that out and put it online, it is so free to just do that stuff now. All the shipping is figured out. All the stuff is figured out.
They've made it so ridiculous where They give you the label.
Right.
All you got to do is package it up.
They calculate it with
tape it
they
up.
calculate all the shit with where it's going, where it's from, where it's. Yeah, you don't have to take it to the post. You don't have to do shit.
It's unreal. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you should do that, man. Like I said, I've been sort of dicking around with just the watches, but I'm sure there's money to be made if you wanted to open a Hawaiian shirt fucking store.
Maybe I will.
You should autograph each one from the Josh and Friends podcast.
Hawaiian boutique.
Yeah.
I have many different styles, more than you probably know.
Yeah, the Thomas Magnum Starter Collection shop. You get just a bunch of every time you go to a thrift store, just look for a Detroit Tigers hat.
Yeah.
Just pick up Detroit Tigers hats and fucking floral print
Maybe I should
shirts.
change that to my logo, like just a Detroit Tigers hat with like a shirt underneath it, just laying there. Yeah.
See?
Or just a picture of Magnum PI.
Yeah, I mean, just honestly, just sell them as kits. It's like you look for short shorts, short khaki shorts, like loafer boat shoes, and floral print shirt and a Detroit Tigers hat. You could just open a store called the Magnum PI Starter Kit and just sell them in different shoe sizes.
Well, aren't the Magnum PI fans kind of like dying off at this point?
Sort of, but that's like saying that the kids aren't picking up on the Golden Girls, and the kids are picking up on Golden Girls. So like that stuff has a renaissance. They're as
popular as ever. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
And so I think yes, the original fans of Magnum PI are dying off, but they're not the ones that would buy stupid shit for irony anyway.
That's true. By the way, great theme song.
Yeah, it's great. Yes.
Great theme song.
Yeah.
Great theme song.
I mean, the 80s TV shows were really great for music and making inanimate objects into characters, mostly cars.
Yeah. What would you say is the greatest TV theme song? If you had to break it down like
Well, I mean, for me, it's the A-Team.
In 1972, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit.
There's so many great theme songs, man.
There are. I mean, Magnum PI is fantastic. But again, is it a great theme song because the song is great, or is it because the sort of the thing that goes along with it? Like, the greatest intro is probably like Magnum PI. Like, he's driving around a Ferrari, and he has that perfect... like, stops, he pushes the roof off, it's 308, gives a fucking smile.
If you didn't even know what that show was and you saw that intro, you're like, this guy's
I gotta watch this now.
Yeah, this guy's badass. Like, what's going on here? Right?
Yeah.
It's helicopters flying around, like fast, cool cars. They're in Hawaii. Right. It's like, what? Awesome mustache. Come on, right?
Right.
It's amazing.
So, that doesn't, it isn't necessarily the music, but the music is integral, but it's the intro, right? Because there's some, so I don't know. I mean,
did you know, speaking of intros for TV theme songs, do you know who did the narration for the opening of The Incredible Hulk? Remember that show, The Incredible Hulk?
Dr. David Banner, physician, scientist, searching for a way to tap into...
This was mind-blowing to me when I found out about this a couple of years ago. But I was like, what? No! You're kidding me! No way! Do you have like an idea? Can you take a guess?
Trying to think of who it might be.
I'll tell you this: he's not famous for being in the 80s.
No. And I'm trying to think of his name. Vincent. What is his name?
Are you thinking of Vincent Price?
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's not. He did the Thriller one. He did Thriller. No,
I know. Yeah.
So it was. I can't think of his name, but it's Lurch from the Addams Family.
Oh, shit, okay.
Awesome?
You're right.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, that's awesome. Yeah, so Lurch did the narration for...
that's a playback right back to the second gig thing, the side gig. Like, that dude was an actor, but obviously he made money doing voiceovers, so, yeah.
An amazing, awesome voice, and I don't know when that guy died, but that Richard Basehart guy, he died literally 2 years after he did that voice for the Knight Rider opening. I'm like, whoa.
Of like throat cancer, right?
Let me check here.
Knight Rider, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a man who does not exist. My
Michael Knight, a young loner on a crusade to champion the cause of the innocent, the helpless, the powerless, in a world of criminals who operate above the law.
Basehart died in Los Angeles on September 17th, 1984, following a series of strokes. He was
all right. I mean, again,
old.
like,
yeah.
how much? How old?
He was only 70? Wow. They lived hard.
But dude,
though,
that's
day,
a dude that drank every single day and smoked, and like, of course, he died of a bunch of stroke. Like, it's if the cancer didn't get him the strokes, like, come on, that's. Those guys, like, the greatest era in radio can never happen again.
You're right.
Because
absolutely,
it was whiskey and fucking cigarettes.
Yep.
Like, that's what gravels that voice. That's what gets that. Even guys that weren't super deep, like Dave Niehaus, had that kind of crack. The swung on that bounce at like he was a whiskey and and cigarette kind of guy.
Was that his go-to?
His drink? I don't know what he drank. He drank for a while. He did stop drinking because he drank in the booth until the late 90s at least.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when he stopped, but at a certain point he did stop drinking altogether, and
Wow.
But those old radio guys, that's what made a good radio voice, and I think it's objective.
Sure.
That radio voice with that deep baritone and that tenor and like that's what makes great radio voice. That's the golden age
of radio too. I mean, now you have people that sound like us, just on the radio or whatever. But like those old guys, you had to have that certain signature sound to be on the radio.
Right. Well, and the good news was all you had to do to get it was drink a ton and smoke a ton. And those are pleasurable activities, I'm sure, for those guys.
And it's like those classic, FM or AM guys back in the day, and then the FM, like, I'm Shadow Stevens, like.
Yeah.
And me, I'm Shadow Stevens. We are the new Hollywood Squares.
You had to have like either a super crazy unique voice, but Casey Kasem still had a great voice, So,
he did.
Thank you and hello again, everybody. Welcome to America's Top 10. Right now, let's turn to the action on the Billboard Pop Singles Chart and count down the 10 biggest songs in the land this week.
Could you imagine? Like, I remember the first time I heard the podcast "This American Life."
Yeah.
Have you ever listened to that?
No.
With oh man, okay. Well, the joke will fall sort of flat then, but like the dude that hosts that, maybe the worst radio voice I've ever heard, and he is wildly successful in it's and it's a great podcast. I loved it. It was all but he is not at all. It's the worst radio voice of all time.
From WBEZ Chicago, it's This American Life. I'm Ira Glass. Today's program is a rerun, a good one. Stay with us.
It is crazy because back in the day, these radio guys were looked up to by artists. They wanted to, they were just as famous as these artists back in the day, especially regionally, like you can right now, you could probably name some guys from back in the day that you listened to on the radio like that, like they were hugely famous and everybody wanted to be on their show or wanted them to play their music or whatever. And it's just it's one of those things where it kind of went away when now there's like 5 million ways to listen to, anything, right?
And I mean, I think that's also just the changing culture. I mean, like it's not desirable anymore to smoke and drink.
Yeah.
Like it would, and if a guy came on the radio and sounded like that, I don't think people would say, "Oh, that guy sounds great." They would say, "That dude sounds unhealthy."
Yeah, right.
Like it's just we live in a different world.
I saw some of those comments the other day. I posted this thing about Lemmy, and I think I shared that with you, right? Mm-hmm. And you kind of commented on it too, but we're talking tons of comments on this. We're saying the same thing. You're like, this is more sad than it is because Lemmy is basically this guy that was in Motorhead, very famous rock star, and basically all the stories about him were basically how he's this drunken rock star,
world class, colossal drunk.
But he could drink anybody under the table. He could do more drugs and alcohol than anybody else. And people were just basically glamorizing this. And And now people like, this documentary came out, like 2011 or something like that. And now people watch it and it's like, wow, that's like kind of sad.
It's only sad if it was sad for him. Like, that's the thing is, if he was having a great time, that's a fucking awesome
I'm
life.
sure he had a blast. Come on, are you kidding me?
Sort of. But that's the question is sort of. Because, like, we all know that, like, drinking booze once in a while, hell, I got my drink here. Drinking booze once in a while, super fun.
Sure.
If you do it every single day heavily, I don't think it stays fun. So like, no. but that's a question for Lemmy that nobody can really ever answer now is, was it fun? Like, would you objectively say it was fun, or were you fucking miserable and just living the rock star life because that's what you were living?
Right.
So that's the real question is, did he have fun?
But I think he's also not just doing alcohol. He's probably doing coke
all of it. But that's the question is like, we can't say, oh, what a tragic life because he drank or, did drugs and alcohol. We can only say, what a tragic life if Lemmy said, I had a tragic life.
Right. Yeah.
And if he said, are you kidding? This was fucking awesome. I lived twice as long as I thought I would, and I had all the fun. Maybe
like
that's
Keith Richards.
Yeah.
Like Keith Richards literally just stopped drinking like a couple of years ago or something like that. I was like, wow.
Right.
That's wild.
And that's the thing is like that's the conundrum of life is like, what do you do? Do you try and be safe? Do you try and live a long time? Do you try to have fun? Because those things are kind of opposite directions, right? Because I've never done any drugs, but they sure look fun. Like, but the consequence of drugs is pretty well documented. If it goes wrong, but not for everyone. Some people have done drugs their entire lives.
I was watching an interview with Stevie Nicks. It's got to be, I don't know when it came out, but it was like an interview that they were talking to her, and she was like, rock and roll, people, when drugs were, just intertwined with the business, she made a great point. And she was like, no one told us drugs were bad. Like, we didn't know. No, we didn't know.
Right.
Obviously, then everybody started dying and stuff like that. But, like, back in the day, it's like, okay, there was a couple of people that died of drugs and stuff like that. But it was just it was such a part of the industry. Everyone's doing drugs, Yep. And she famously had, like, a massive coke habit.
Yeah.
Where, like, I think she had, like a hole in her nose or something crazy. Mm-hmm. And, like, the other guy in the group, Lindsey Buckingham, was like, we were all doing drugs. It's just like some people were doing way more drugs,
right.
So it was one of those things where it's like anything else where we all know friends that have had severe drug or alcohol problems, but, I think a lot of those people have that gene where we always talk about too, where like, look, I drink and I get sick. I get like super sick. And then I'm like, I don't want to drink for a couple weeks or like a month, right?
Yep.
Now, some of these guys were like, they don't have that gene. They don't have that gene where they get like super sick.
Yep.
Like famously, what's his name? Used to talk about Pat O'Brien.
Never getting a hangover.
Hi, Pat O'Brien. I've never had a hangover. Right. Like that was the worst thing. They probably happened to me. So he has that superhero essentially trait where he does not get sick. He never has ever had a hangover. And then, by the way, I've met a lot of people like that now, which is weird because
it is weird.
I can't even understand that, but I've known a lot of people that are like, I've never really had a hangover. I'm like, what? Because I get super sick.
Right.
So and then there's other people that will do drugs, and it's like some people will do drugs like recreationally, like when they're drinking or something like that. And then there's other people that they do drugs and they're like, I never want this to end. Like, this is the greatest thing ever. I never want this to end, and I always want to chase that high, and that's the problem.
Right. That's one of the... I won't bring up his name, but one of our mutual friends that passed away a while ago now, 2005. But I remember him telling me he tried cocaine once, and he said, I knew that I could never do that again because I instantly fell in love with it. Oh. And... then he died at 25 anyway, but so maybe look, of all the people that should have done it, maybe he should have, but
I don't know,
there
is crazy without doing cocaine.
He was pretty good. Yeah. So, but that's the thing is like everybody there is no answer to what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
We have sort of these guidelines that say like, I probably should exercise and eat right and whatever, but like, who's having more fun, the people jogging or the people drinking? The people drinking, unless they're drinking every single day and having
too, right?
Yeah, it is, and we don't know. Yeah, so that's why I say, like, back to the Lemmy thing. It sounds miserable to me because I couldn't do that.
Right, exactly.
I could not do what he did and live a life that was at all fulfilling. I would be miserable the entire time.
Well, and what did he died at like what, like 70 or 70 something, like that in rock star years for like the way that people describe
that's like
how
150.
He lived?
Yeah, that's 150 in rock star years.
That's insanity. That is crazy. Yeah. Oh god.
So and he had all the fun. I mean, like all the fun, except like I said, we think observing from the outside.
Kind of
all the fun.
Kind of. So like, who was the band that had? Who were they talking about? I was watching one of these behind the musics, and they were talking about how. I think it was Journey. So basically, they were kind of like a jam band back in the day, right? And then when they got Steve Perry, then he started doing like, kind of like love songs, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the guys in the band was like fighting him. He's like, dude, we can't release this, like Open Arms or whatever, like they're just super ballad. Like they're doing all these like rock songs back in the day. And then he's like, you want us to actually put this on a recording of ours and like actually sell this to the public? And Steve Perry was like, then we did that in concert. And everybody in the entire audience was singing along. And the guitar
lighters and
then they go back to the guitarist, and the guitarist goes, it was kind of nice to see our audience change from all dudes to like all these hot women all singing the song.
Yeah, dude.
And it's like, dude, okay, I think
what do you want out of life? Yeah, what do you like? That's an observation that's like, hey, what are we doing this for? Like, what do we actually want out of this thing? Yeah.
I think we're gonna be all right here. We're gonna be okay.
Yeah, like maybe our hit won't be a number one, but number two with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all right. Like,
oh man. Yeah. So
yeah,
getting Steve Perry in that band was probably a good move for them. And he was.
It certainly didn't hurt him commercially.
And it's funny because he was. You'd think that Steve Perry was there for like, we're like, man, he was there for like 20 years. No, he was there from like 78 to like 86. Like. And
that still sounds like a long time for me in rock years, because
but the guy that replaced him, he might have even been there longer than Steve Perry. But like the guy that's in there now, that Filipino guy, Arnell or whatever his name is, he's been there longer than Steve Perry.
Oh right, yeah,
but he's not. I think they've released maybe one or two albums. Of course, they're not big albums, but he's released a couple albums with him as the singer of his own songs or whatever. But
that goes. Yeah. I mean, that's how it all goes. Like if you think about, I don't know, fucking Nirvana isn't a great one because they didn't have a huge catalog of shit. But how long does Nirvana's fucking thing seem? Their reign, like their. Right. It seems long. It seems like
89 or I think it is
91. Really, 91 was Nevermind, and he died in 94.
Yeah, I mean, if you count Bleach, like which was on their super small, label with Sub Pop, but
right?
Like 89, 91, 93, and then
he died.
Yeah, and then he died.
And then Courtney killed him.
Yeah, Courtney killed him.
So, but that's the thing is like we all look back at that and we're even the fucking Beatles.
Right.
It's not like the Beatles were around for 30 years.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The Beatles were.
They were 64 to 70.
They were big from 60. I think they kind of like formed actually like with the actual name of the Beatles in like 60 or something like that. But yeah, when they were big, like 64 to kind of, I guess technically 70.
Right.
Yeah, so
6 years. 6 years for the most prolific rock band in history.
Yeah, well, so they released like their first album, "Please Please Me," and then their second album with the Beatles in 1963. But it didn't get big until it like exploded here.
Right, right.
So,
but even then, like 7 years. Like you're saying, Steve Perry wasn't even there that long. He was there 6 years, right? We think of that and it's like, that isn't very long. We're old. Like young people think that's a long time. Fucking 10 years. What are you talking about?
Bag on those guys either because think about this. Like you can always find a singer that especially with those kind of bands, you know what I mean? Like, who is it always harder for than anybody else in the band? The singer. The singer. Yeah. It's always the hardest for the singer. Maybe the drummer if they're like, you know, like a band like Metallica or something like that. You know, right. but the poor singers, especially like with those voices, those kind of voices where like you hit those crazy high, like, you know, those insane high voices, like a Peter Cetera or like a Journey, right? Like those guys,
or the metal dudes.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You know, the Phil Anselmos of the world.
Right. But like, try to like, you know, trying to hit those like night after night. I'm sorry, like you're not. You may go out and attempt it, but like now they're talking about like these. The big controversy over the last couple months has been Motley Crue and some of these bands and Casey
and
Jones,
Axl Rose and
all these bands they play like basically like Mick Mars. He was suing, you know, Motley Crue because like they kind of like replaced him,
right?
And they took his cut of like the tour or whatever, and basically he's like, you know what, this fucking tour that we're just on the big stadium tour, nobody's fucking playing their music. Nikki Sixx has famously not even been a great. He's not ever anybody that knows anything about Nikki Sixx is
top 1,000 bass players. He doesn't make
Nikki Sixx is a great songwriter. He's not a great bassist. He even said like
not a great showman even
in his he looks cool and he could write songs, right? That's always been his strength.
Yeah, he's the Jerry Cantrell of
well, Jerry Cantrell,
he's a fantastic guitar player.
Yeah, he's cool. Like, you know, but it's funny because the backing tracks on these bands is becoming like a huge thing with a lot of people, but I'm like, to me, I'm like, I don't know, like, doesn't everybody kind of, I guess people don't know, like, because this is like, it's a big controversy, but I'm like, doesn't everybody kind of know that? Like, I was talking to my brother about this, and I remember my brother leaning over, and he was like, because we went to ELO, we went to like, you know, Jeff Lynne. ELO, if people don't know, they're a very, they have a lot of stuff going on in their songs. Like, they're called the Electric Light Orchestra. They had like these crazy songs that were very intricate. There's a lot of stuff going on in these songs. We went to see them, and I'm like, this sounds a little too slick for the people that
for
are
live
on stage, right? And by the way, everything's synced up to the back of the big giant screen with all the graphics and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm like, I mean, I
There's
love
no
it because
way.
I'm seeing Jeff Lynne. I'm a huge Jeff Lynne fan. I've always been a big Jeff Lynne fan, but
there's no way.
It's a little too slick, you know. Like I took video of this, and it's like it sounds essentially like, you know, what you would hear on the album,
dude.
Right?
Even way back when we had the nightclub, we had who the hell was playing? I think it was Second Coming. It wasn't even a huge band, but they rolled a computer thing in there on a hand truck, a computer rig, and they plugged it into the sound system, and it was Pro Tools, and Pro Tools had everything, had all the tracks, all the whatever, all the everything synced up. It was there, and it was like they played basically the show without the band standing on stage. And for people that don't know, but I guess that's the question: do people care? Because
that's what I always keep bringing up. Because think of like all the people, mostly I'm talking about young kids that never got to see, like, this is like the last kind of like heyday of rock stars. Right?
Guitar
They're all
rock.
dying off now. They're all dying off. I mean, there's always going to be rocks. There's always going to be rock singers and rock bands and whatever. But these are the biggest old stadium bands, you know, like these bands that basically they don't ever have to release another note of music.
Yep.
And
they'll fill a stadium every time. Right.
Yeah, and they could play backtracking stuff all the time, and okay, so Mick Mars made a point where like they didn't play any of their music or whatever. It's all backtracks and blah blah with what's his name singing over the songs. People clearly didn't give a shit because they made like millions of dollars off that last tour. And you know what? Did anybody in the audience care? Not really. People were posting every night. People were posting videos of how shitty like Vince Neil sounded. And like literally like there'd be like Tommy Lee drumming before he could sit down. It's like the drums are starting to go. It's like, oh god.
Right.
So it's like nobody cares because
what are the biggest movies in the world? They're fucking superhero sci-fi movies. Nobody cares about real. They care about entertainment.
Yeah, it's the same movie over and over, rehashes,
and it's animated, and it's whatever, and it's
sequels.
Movie stars, people who are actual humans, with so much shit on them you can't even recognize them. And people are like, "Yeah, this is my favorite movie. That's cool." People don't care about real. They go to entertainment to escape, more so than ever. And I think music is part of that. Like if we don't presume that they're just going to put on a good show using synthetic sort of stuff, that's really naive.
Well, it's exactly kind of like, it's just what we're talking about, but it's like when, I don't give a shit. I wanted to see Jeff Lynne. I wanted to see, I'm trying to think of it like Paul McCartney. Mm-hmm. Paul McCartney's a little different because you could tell that like that band was, he gets, some of the top guys and everything. I'm probably sure that they use backtracks on some of their stuff too, but Paul's voice, as you could tell, Paul's voice is kind of, it's he's getting up there, man. But but I wanted to see Paul McCartney.
Right.
I wanted to see a Beatle. I didn't give a shit what, he could have gone up there and they could have wheeled him around in a wheelchair in a circle and done whatever. And I'd be like, I saw Paul McCartney. Like, this is like the greatest thing ever, Yep. I don't care. So, yeah, like there's certain bands that I would care a lot more about than others as far as that goes.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I think people who want to hear real music aren't going to pay $600 to do it. The real music has now, and I think has always happened, in local clubs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, if you are interested in real music, you go to places and watch bands that nobody's ever heard of. And then once they get to the point where it is a commercial product that thousands of people rely upon for their fucking income, there is no way that it can't be a product that is reliably exactly the same every time.
But is that showing our age? Because when I started going out to like these little rock clubs and they would have DJs, what do you think the DJs are playing? It's basically the guy going like this with like a, But
I think that's cultural. I think the culture now, that's why when we went to movies when we were younger, it was live action because the technology didn't exist to do what they're doing now, or it wasn't very good. Star Wars was a revelation because the technology didn't exist. They made fucking models.
Yeah.
To do it. Now the technology exists. I think going to a club and like to some extent, it's us showing our age, but I think it's more us showing that the technology didn't exist to make compelling music out of fucking turntables in 1984. They had to wait until 2000 to make compelling music that people would enjoy.
Yeah, well, the game changer was the fact that they could take these tools that were only able to be duplicated in a studio. Now they can carry them on a laptop,
portable,
and take them around.
Exactly, it's technology. Yeah,
there was like a famous, I can't remember what band it was, but there was like this band a couple of years ago that they were like they were on tour and they I don't know, they lost or forgot their laptop, and they were a band, like a rock band,
right,
and they were like, we got to cancel the show, and I'm like, wow, like, dude. You really had to cancel the show because you didn't have your Pro Tools or your computer.
But that's the product thing. It's a product, and there's no question that they have to make it reliable and predictable. And because if you go to the show and they don't have their laptop and they sound like shit, you're gonna hate it, and then you're gonna post bad shit about them.
Well, you could end up like what's her name? What's that girl that was on Saturday Night Live?
Lana Del Rey. That was the worst thing in the history of.
No, the other one that...
there's another one that's worse. Because I remember that one. That was like 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah, so...
Or 10
what's
years ago.
What's her name?
On a Monday, I'm waiting. Tuesday, I'm fading.
But she made the mistake of like walking off stage instead of just reeling it in.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was so bad. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like cringy.
But also, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Nobody really cares
career,
anymore.
So It kind of.
But that was right in that gray area where people cared about authenticity or not, and probably it'll come back. Like, people don't care about authenticity now. Clearly, if you look at our fucking political and news and all, like, people do not care about authenticity. They care about the message that suits them. The sound that suits their fucking personality. It'll probably come back to a point where people want only authenticity.
Yeah.
Instead of a sound that is pleasing to them.
Now, what was that? You were talking about this like the other day about how, how music, you got your favorite types of music, like as you, like, from your formative years.
Mm-hmm.
How are you, like, kind of describing that? And it was because I love it, and I completely agree.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were just talking about music, and a friend of mine is younger. She's 25 or 26, and so music is still very important to her, right? Mm-hmm. And thinking back, music was very important to me. It was very important to you. Like, I think everybody can look back at a certain era in their life and say, God, music was so important. And we all correlate it with, that's because the music was better. But my kind of theory, my unscientific theory is music isn't better or worse. It's that from, I don't know, mid-junior high to 3 years after high school is when you're doing all the new shit.
Yeah.
And the music that you're listening to is the soundtrack to those brand new experiences. Getting a car, driving around, getting drunk, getting laid, all those things happen, and they're really formative things. And then you get a job and you settle down and your life doesn't change much, and the music is no longer a fucking emotional thing
and
that
you're
goes on
focusing
behind
on different things, like raising a family or, making.
And the music just isn't part of the soundtrack of like these experiences, these formative experiences that you'll remember the rest of your life, because you're not going to remember going to the same cubicle every day the rest of your life. So it doesn't matter what music you play in your cubicle, it's not going to sink in. But if you went on a fucking road trip with some friends and you played some music and it was fucking awesome, that sticks. And then in your head, that music is better. Even though the music is probably as good today, it's just now we're all sitting in cubicles, and the fucking experience that we associate with the music is not emotional.
Remember that song? I think it's like a one-hit wonder. I don't even know if it was a big hit, but it was on like one of those mixed CDs that they used to like hand out at like, free things. And and it
there's
was
a lot
of I think it was like called, they're like The Living End, and it was like Roll On. Remember that song?
Yeah, I do. That was on our road trip. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of going down to like, California during 9/11.
Yep. Yeah, but that's the thing. But that's what we do, is we tie music to the thing that we were doing at that moment.
Right. Yeah. Like it's literally like a soundtrack. It's a soundtrack to our lives.
Right. And so the good music has very little to do with the music. I mean, if we're being objective about it, because our parents and like my grandparents probably had the Glenn Miller Orchestra when they first fell in love and were dancing and like, right. And so to them, that's the best music ever, because it was during those formative years where they got all those crazy experiences.
Yeah, they're out dancing and, getting drunk.
Getting laid. I mean, they're getting drunk, they're getting laid, they're like...
In all fairness to Glenn Miller Orchestra, it was pretty fantastic. It's pretty good stuff. It's pretty good stuff. Pretty timeless.
But so is, there's a lot of good music out there.
So are the Beatles, so is Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and like, Yeah. No, that is funny, because like every era does have great music, but the stuff that generally connects with you is during that period of time. What did you say? There was a period of time. Is there like, what did you say? You're like, not mid Coke to, create, but no.
Right.
We always love that. We always love that term.
Yeah.
No, but you said like, what, junior high to like,
Yeah, like I would say, like for me, I guess I can't speak for other people, but like, I think it's pretty fair to say that most people start experiencing sort of the freedom and the sort of exploration of becoming an adult from mid-junior high to like 3 or 4 years after, to through college, 4 years after high school.
Right.
And music is super important, because that's what you're fucking doing, is you're out there listening to music, talking to people, learning how to interact. You're getting, I don't know, like that's that period,
like,
from
especially back in the day too, because music was the industry was a lot bigger, but like that was like one of the first questions that you would always ask. Or like, you know, back in our day, remember when we'd go to parties and stuff like that, where would I go? I'd be like, what do you got over here? Like, can I like look through some of your music over here? Because that really does, it would like tell you a lot about a person. Like, okay, so you're like, oh, country and rap. Okay, so rock. Okay, soft. Okay, all right, yeah. So like, oh, you like punk music. Oh, okay, all right, right. On. You like really like could know a lot about a person.
And honestly, you can tell probably a lot about their experiences by what they're doing.
Sure. Right? Oh, you're into the Cure and
so you had some drug, you did a little, maybe probably an eating disorder.
Through some severe depression over here, like
right. Yeah. But also that's another thing too. So like old people never become rock stars or famous musicians when they're old. That should tell you all you need to know, because nobody gives a shit about a middle-aged musician. Anybody who ever got famous in music did it when they were young, because the only people that make people famous and create new music are young.
Oh, you're okay. I gotcha. Yeah. So there are old people that are
there, but they all got famous when they were young. They all got famous.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm trying to think of like Susan Boyle. What about Susan Boyle? You know who that is?
Fuck. Yeah, I do, from fucking American Idol. But yes, aside from Susan Boyle, who was on a fucking massive TV show, and
you're right. William Hung, he got famous when he was young. So
right. Well, right. Well, but no, I think that's important. Like, rock stars never become rock stars when they're 50. They become rock stars when they're 22. And that's no coincidence, because
my brain to try to figure out one, but I don't think I'm going to do it.
Well, it's just because that's the audience. Like the people who identify with those people are the people who are that age or younger, usually a few years younger. Like when you're in junior high, you're listening to dudes that are 22. When you're in high school, you're listening to, I mean, it's a young person's thing, and that's why music has always catered to young people, is because that's the formative years. That's when you give a shit about music, because you're not worried about other shit.
Yeah,
I remember you're not going to a job.
I heard an interview when we were working down in Portland one time. It was maybe it was actually him, because he was on the radio. Remember the lead singer of Everclear? Was it Art?
Yeah, Art Alexakis.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
He was talking about he goes that it was crazy that we actually made it, because we were old, or I don't know if it was just him, but he's like, I was older than pretty much everybody else on the radio at the time. So he goes, it was kind of crazy that I actually made that, and that makes a lot of sense what you're saying, because he was an older guy that made it. But
yeah, I mean, middle age is when people make all their money. I mean, that's when,
especially if you're one of those big,
because their audience is middle aged also, and they have money to spend. But like making rock stars can only happen with youth, because youth are the only ones that give a shit. They're the ones who are focused on music as though it's part of their life. It's so important to them, because it's fucking the soundtrack to all the new experiences. Yeah. And when you get older in life, those experiences evaporate. You get a glide path that doesn't have new things.
Now, what do you think about, Lee, so this is kind of an interesting kind of topic, where I've had this conversation with a few people, where it's kind of like when your band is so popular and so famous, and then a key member of the band dies, and it's like, and then there's like a certain part of the population that's like, dude, fuck that, they're fucking done. But it's like the name itself, the brand is so big, so strong, that it's like you're pissing away money if you don't take that name and you do something with it, right?
Right.
So like, I'm kind of like one of those kind of people that are like, I get it, man. Like, how do you let like a brand like the Doors just sit there and like, that's it, it's done? Like the other guys, they got to do something, right?
Well, I think that goes to what the product is. It's what we were just talking about. The product is not music. Music is everywhere. There's all kinds of music everywhere. The product isn't music. The product is nostalgia.
Right.
And memories. And once you lock people into life experience that incorporates a certain sound or a certain music, you get to sell that to that group of people forever. And it's irrelevant who is playing it to 99% of the people, because the thing isn't who's telling them the message. The thing is that they associate it with nostalgia. I think with a memory.
I think the band that is probably been the most successful at making it okay to
Leonard Skinner.
No, not even close.
Okay. Shit, not even close. Wow, I didn't even get in the ballpark.
Well, because Leonard Skinner, you know, I'm just gonna say, so like the way that Queen did the way that they're doing. So basically, if you ever saw they came out with a documentary a few years ago. I don't know, it could have been 10 years at this point. I don't know, but I'm not a big Adam Lambert guy. I don't care, like whatever. And he's like replacing Freddie Mercury, who's one of the greatest frontmen in history, right?
Right.
But what he does, I've seen people that have seen him in concert with, you know, Queen, the members of Queen.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's like 2 left. The other one just retired or whatever. I don't want it.
He's 75. Yeah.
Whatever. He's just like, I don't. You guys can do it. Whatever. But the way that they do it is like he comes out there and he announces, he's like, hey, I'm not Freddie Mercury. There is no Freddie Mercury. He's gone, but we're here to celebrate together. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. That's kind of a smart way to do it.
Yep,
because
it totally
there, you're not acting like, you know, some of those like hair band guys are like, they go out there and like sometimes there's 2 different bands, like literally touring at the same time.
Right.
And like, you know, if you're like a hardcore fan, you're like, okay, this is the guy with the guitarist. This is the band over here that has the singer. Who do I see? But like, they lay it out there for you. So it's like they're being completely transparent. And I think that's kind of like a smart way to do it. Like, you know,
it's 100%. Because I think it's also...
it becomes just a party, right? So like you have, listen, you have one of the main guys. You have Brian May, fantastic guitarist. He's amazing. And then you have the guy that's, you know, an okay version of Freddie Mercury.
I think that's being honest about what the product is.
Sure, absolutely.
He's going out there and saying, I know that the product isn't Freddie Mercury because it can't be.
Yeah,
the product
that's
is
exactly
we're
what
going to let you enjoy some time with some music that you enjoy that probably has a nostalgia for you. Enjoy.
At least they got, and again, I'm not a big fan of that dude, but he's flamboyant. He's like Freddie Mercury in the sense that he's
a great
like,
showman.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, they're also a band that also had, before him, Paul Rogers. As the front man. I'm like, that doesn't go at all. That's weird. No. Like, what?
Paul that was just, they picked somebody who was like big also.
He's like a biker, like kind of like sound like, you know, Bad Company. Like what? Like, and then they go to they do a combination of his songs and their songs. I'm like, that's a weird fit. Like
that's some like manager that was like, hey, we need to get somebody who's big that people know from this era and we'll put it together.
Kind of weird, right? Like
it's a little weird, but also I think it's a misunderstanding of what the product is. They thought that the product was the music. The product isn't really the music. The product is the fans having a good time. And usually that's nostalgia. Usually it's like, I remember getting laid in my 79 Chevelle to this song.
Yeah, because I'll have people that, with these 2 bands especially, like they'll be like, I'm going to see Journey. And I'm like,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of like.
Right.
And
then, that's me with live music, honestly, for most of it. I'm not a big live music guy anymore.
Yeah. I mean, just because I saw Chicago and it was kind of like the same deal. See, they still have a couple of like lead singers in the band, right? Mm-hmm. But the main guy, Peter Cetera, they had a guy that, you know, he sounded probably better than Peter Cetera now.
Right.
But, all right. But, you know, it's like, you know, the guy that opened for him, Brian Wilson. Oh, Lee. Oof.
Yeah.
They shouldn't. They should. That should be. They should be. They should have charges pressed against them for wheeling him out there.
Yeah.
Like it was a.
That documentary with John Cusack was really good with him, but
the biopic with no, that's a great movie. Strongly recommend that. The guy that played the young, like Brian Wilson, holy moly!
Yeah,
wow. I'm like, that's Brian Wilson. That's Brian Wilson over there. It's like weird, but no, he did a good job though. Like, did a good job being like the weird, you know.
You know what's interesting is today's kids. So like we all had to find ways to have them recreate real people. But imagine this generation growing up. I wonder, they don't really have to replace anyone. they can sort of replace, because a lot of the music is so synthetic anyway.
Well, they could just.
I wonder if they've solved this problem.
They can, didn't they have the Tupac hologram at Coachella?
But I mean, forget even that, because a lot of the music is not even really based upon a person. I mean, I guess most of it still is, but I don't know. It's so synthetic now that, like, with the rare exception, I mean, like, there are some people who can still totally fucking belt.
Adele.
I mean, Adele. Yeah, I was gonna say Adele. Miley Cyrus,
Lady
can
Gaga.
fucking wail.
Yeah. There's a handful of people, and what's her name? Taylor Swift sells out stadiums.
Absolutely.
Like multiple nights.
Yep.
Of stadiums, like just around the country, and she can't sell enough tickets. There's people that they can't even get tickets.
Yep.
So there are massive draws now, but
that are legit singers. So I guess maybe
Sure.
I'm a little flawed in saying, we're not quite to the generation that will never really have to suffer seeing their idol wheeled out there and have some clearly synthetic version of them, because the music isn't quite all the way synthetic yet. But it feels a little bit like that to us old assholes. So the minute Cher did, auto-tune and unapologetically, that was it. That was the end of singing.
All right, Lee. Is there anything else that you'd like to say about music? This really went fast. We were just
did, and honestly,
it's great.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because we went from I love the side gig thing, and it's weird how much music sort of goes along with that too. Because honestly, most of our thrift store stories were driving around listening to music, and we just ended up there.
Oh, 100%, 100%. That's why I was thinking to myself, were we listening to music when we went to that? Well, we were always listening to music. That was right. We just always blast music, which I think I was driving around with you recently, and you were like, you didn't have the radio on, and I find myself sometimes just not even having the radio on now, and it's it reminds me of driving around with my grandpa, because my grandpa never has any music on. He's just listening to the road. It's interesting.
Look, getting old is weird. It really is, man. There's a lot of shit, and especially like I said, I've got this friend that's in her 20s, and she and I speak very openly. I'm a middle-aged dude, right? I mean, but I'm almost 50. I have a dumb mohawk. Clearly middle-aged, midlife crisis shit.
Right.
And it's weird knowing that we're kind of the old people now, and that we see the things in ourselves that we only saw in the old people then, and now we're like, oh fuck, I guess here we are.
Yeah. Well, I know. And I was I was training some people on the phone today, and I was telling them my age, and I'm like, man, I don't feel that I act my age, but I certainly feel my age.
Yeah.
And that is a big difference between those two factors there. But yeah,
we're old, and that's why our music is better than the new music.
Oh, look at this guy over here! Look at this guy! Yeah. All right, Lee. Thanks again for coming on, buddy. We're gonna have to do it again. We could talk about music. We could talk about the housing crash of 2023 maybe next time.
Yeah, that's a super depressing one, so I don't know if people are into that, but it's coming. It better come, because I've fucking put my money where my mouth is. I'm rooting for the economy to tank.
Oh my gosh! All right, we're going to leave it at that, Lee. All right, for Lee Olson, my name's Josh, and as always, thank you for being a friend.
Till then, keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars.